Arizona Sheriff Clarence Dupnik has said that he believes that the attack over the weekend was somehow inspired by the political discourse in America, specifically radio talk show hosts and American politicians. Have you seen any hard evidence of a link between the shooter and an American talk show host or American politician?
What I have read and seen more indications of were that apparently this guy hated the flag, loved Karl Marx and Mein Kampf, and may have been an atheist. So obviously, if there have been talk show people who have inflamed him, it may be people that the sheriff listens to, but it's certainly not Sarah Palin or Rush Limbaugh or people that the sheriff kept trying to point to. And, you know, during my days as a judge, you start noticing when people like that stand up and start accusing without any evidence other people. Normally you have to start going, okay, this guy's got something to hide. There's something underneath here for a law enforcement official to immediately come out without any evidence whatsoever, and in fact, evidence being to the contrary of what he's saying, must have something to hide. We need to look into that. What did he know before this all happened? Was this lashing out coming from a guilty conscience? He knew things that he should have acted on that would have saved lives. And understand, I don't blame the sheriff or the shooter. The shooter, he's responsible. That's where the blame lies. But I just have noticed from human nature when somebody comes out lashing out that strongly without any evidence to support what he's saying, it's like the old thing, if you point the finger at me, you got 4 pointing back at you. And so it makes me wonder what the sheriff has to hide. Why would he come out without any evidence and accuse people of something so heinous as to causing the death of a 9-year-old and the shooting of our friend Gabby? So I think we've got some looking to do.
What do you say to people like the sheriff and members of Congress, even, who have said that the alleged heated or violent political rhetoric is somehow needs to be addressed because of the tragedy?
Well, what concerns me is when people start talking about putting a lid on debate and disputes and discussions, even when they're a bit heated. Because one of the things that's made America great is the differences of opinion. Unless one of us has 100% lock 100% of the time on God's truth, then we ought to listen to each other. Debate's a good thing. It's what the founders wanted when they created not one body but two bodies, and that wasn't enough to create the kind of gridlock they hoped for. They created a president that would be elected from another manner, not like a prime minister, and they created a judicial branch that could also veto them. They wanted some gridlock because they didn't want it too easy to make laws. They wanted disagreement. But the danger is when we start talking about putting a lid on disagreement, then it's potentially putting the lid on a powder keg. And if you know anything about explosions, the tighter you make a container that contains an explosion, the worse the explosion is down the road. So I think debate is a good thing. I think the worst thing in the world that could contribute to violence is for people on the left or right to be unable to say what they think. That could create real problems. But as far as advice for the sheriff, he's an elected official. He's an American. He's not prohibited by law from making the ridiculous statements that he has that do more to help the defendant than they do anyone else, including the victims. And so I know as a former prosecutor, my advice to the sheriff would be to shut up before you do any more damage to the prosecution's case, quit helping the defendant, sheriff. But if he wants to help the defendant, he's elected by the local people, and he's free to help the defendant with their defense if that's what he chooses to do. And then the people can decide at the next election if that's the kind of sheriff they want. So my advice to him, if I were his prosecutor, quit destroying my case while we're still trying to investigate. And further, if you do some more investigation, as much as you've been running off at the mouth, we're going to have an airtight case.